Diane gets back, and then we'll get started here.
John, is he out this one okay? Yeah, he's with me, doesn't he?
Almost every morning.
Yeah, so.
We're going to get started because it's 7. Okay, I'm going to call the August 17th, 2021 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District to order. We have a quorum. Thank you all. We're called to order, so we're on to item 3, approval of agenda. Does anybody have any adjustments that they'd like to make to the agenda? Diane?
I would like to remove, under the treasurer's report, approval of audit proposal and also bylaw update.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? I have a couple of new business items I'll add. One is this paving project that we'll just discuss briefly, and then the other is we'll just call it COVID office hours under new business. Anybody else have anything?
Brian, do we also want to discuss meetings? If the COVID numbers go up, will we go back to remote?
Yeah, let's talk about that. We'll add that into that same item, hey?
Sounds good.
Office hours and meetings. Okay, anybody else? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. We have an agenda. The next item is the July 20th, 2021 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they'd like made to the meeting minutes? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the July meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Public comment period. We reserve 15 minutes on the agenda for topics that aren't on the agenda. Nobody's here, so we'll assume nobody wants to take advantage of that. We're on to new business. One is that there's a paving project that's going to occur over at Ramsey County Beach in September. And that's not really an us thing. I'm just bringing it up to let everybody know if you get any questions about that. The parking lot's going to be closed. The boat ramp will be closed while they're actively paving. And it looks like it could be closed for several days. So now you know. Any questions on that? Mike?
Worthwhile to put that on the website or social media or anything to let people know?
I think it's a good idea.
I just sent it to Meredith for social media,
good,
because
good.
that's the best way to get the word out, I think.
Yeah, because people don't
Really?
regularly come to the website to get information like that.
Got it. So good that they handle it the way they, okay, thanks for taking care of that. Okay, the other one is COVID office hours and meetings. And so the executive committee had some discussion about this, and I'll just make the announcement under new business, is that we're going to switch our office hours to be by appointment only. So if somebody wants to make an appointment to come in, Kim will accommodate them based on that. Just to, let this COVID thing settle again. And then meetings. The executive committee didn't discuss meetings necessarily. Well, I guess maybe we kind of did, and it was more that we need to monitor and figure out the best approach for our upcoming meeting in September, let's say. And does anybody have anything they want to say about that, or would you prefer that I just, canvass people as it gets closer to September, or what do people have on their mind at the moment? Okay, well, what I plan to do is I'll plan to canvass everybody as we get closer to September's meeting date, and also we'll know, more theoretically about what's happening with the COVID cases. Okay, that's it for new business. Oh,
I just
Diane?
comment, the office by appointment hours will be posted on the door outside the office and also on the website, so people will be aware of it.
Yeah, to make the public aware.
Yeah.
Good. All right, thank you. Okay, so there is no unfinished business, so we're on to reports and action items. The first item is the executive committee. The executive committee met. We discussed a few topics, I think most of which will be brought up by Mark here shortly under his report. And I don't think there was really anything else that we discussed that is outside of that, other than those two topics. Any questions about that non-report? Okay. So we're on to Lake Quality Committee. Mike.
Okay, the lake level right now today is 923.63. So it's down 13 inches from last month, but we've had a drought going on, if you haven't noticed, and not much you can do about it. The average lake level is 923.42. So we're basically 3 inches shy of being at the average level.
What was the
Pardon me?
924.42, did you say?
Today, 923.63.
And
Average is 923.42. So that's that. Lake temperature is 78 degrees. I usually take the temperature like 2 to 3 feet below the surface. If you take it on the surface, it would be 80 degrees today, and it would have been higher a couple of days ago, but the true temperature is a few feet below the surface, and it's 78 degrees, so it's still nice and comfortable. Phragmites. We've been looking for volunteers. Meredith had it posted, social media, haven't had any responses. Kim hasn't had any responses. I haven't had any responses. Pretty much it's getting time to do the survey. In a couple of days, I'm going to call Julia Bowen at the University of Minnesota, who is going to come out and help us with the survey, and I will be with her. We'll pick a date, and then maybe we'll post the date, and maybe that'll encourage somebody to say, well, I am free that day, and I'll come and help. And we just need, more eyes and maybe another small boat that can go in amongst the weeds and, help check things out. And Julia will definitely do an instruction to show people exactly what we're looking for. If not, then the two of us will do it. So that's kind of it for now.
Mike, on that, the Phragmites survey,
Yeah.
I know you don't know the exact date, but do you have a ballpark? Like, is it September or August or October? We don't know.
It will depend on Julia's calendar. I'm guessing it's going to be late August, early September, right around that.
Got it.
If not before Labor Day, pretty close after.
Okay.
It's not something you have to rush out and do, but we'll get her done.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. So on to Lake Utilization Committee, Mark.
Should I read through these or just paraphrase them? I'll read through them. So went through a couple things that we've noticed in the past. Hasn't been working, so we're trying to rectify that. The first one is timing of applications, especially in Commercial Bay. And there is some, we did find out, we did change things, but apparently didn't get on to the application, so we need to change the application. I guess last year, Kim, we did it for $25 per week per slip?
Correct.
Okay. Why don't we just scratch that one right now, for now, until we and we can talk about that later. The next one is the city certification letter. The executive committee has decided that it is in the best interest of all involved that the district not be in the business of policing terrestrial laws or regulations such as zoning and parking. As long as the applicant in Commercial Bay has a valid DNR permit on file and complies with the district's policies, they will be permitted to the extent that the district allows. And so we're recommending that the board eliminate the requirement for the Commercial Bay operators to provide that certification. If they run afoul of the city's regulation, then the city will have to enforce them. Action on this should be in the form of a motion next month. You are welcome to call a public hearing and advance to this action as well. The next is defiance of permit. The executive committee and the board generally have been discussing the fact that some Commercial Bay operators may be allowing conditions beyond their permit. While fines are typical consequence, the fact remains that it is hard to fine as an operator such as the fine isn't incorporated into the cost of doing business, and thus it just gets paid. The executive committee is now recommending and the board adopt as a policy that operators found to be in excess of their permits are simply reduced by that number they are in excess for the next 2 years. This will claw back whatever benefits that accrued and provide further disincentive for future conduct. Action on this should be in the form of a motion next month. You're welcome to call a public hearing in advance of this action as well. Winter dock markings. The executive committee also discussed the tragic situation this past winter season where a snowmobile operator collided with a dock in Commercial Bay that remained in place. While tragic, the operator may have been illegally in the area. It seems to the committee that it's a teachable moment for the board and an opportunity to provide some safety protocols. To that end, the committee is recommending that Ordinance 5 be amended to include a requirement that any dock left in place in Commercial Bay be marked with warning lights unless there is a strenuous objection language, and the performance standards shall be brought forward in September. And then the last one, the St. Germain's Bay marker. For those who are not aware, George St. Germain was a longtime board member, and his family is a major landowner in the area of the Bay. Historically, the family ran a small resort business off Echo Street, including cabins and a docking area for guests in the Bay. They also ran a livery service for many, many years, and their ownership goes back to the end of the Civil War. In honor of this family, and George in particular, the district authorized the procurement of the placement of a sign memorializing the St. Germain family. All that said, we have been working to find a place to put it along the Bay. We have been given approval from the City of Delwood, but will not be able to place the sign along 244 as it is a public trunk highway regulated by MnDOT. So there are 2 possible placements for the sign, both private, and we will be exploring the opportunities. In the meantime, I'll be asking for the cost of producing the sign now and not to exceed the amount of $600 that is requested for appropriation.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Welcome.
So here's what I would like to do is I'd like to just have some, maybe a little general discussion about these items so that the board can get some more background on the items. And then as Mark has mentioned in this report, we would be looking to take action at September's meeting. So the first one, applications, and you heard from Mark, we've been trying to figure out a way for a while to keep the operators in Commercial Bay to the limits of the slips that were approved in their permit, and sometimes with less success than others. And so we've been looking for, the first one is the timing of the applications. So this one, sometimes what happens is that the applicants in Commercial Bay delay getting their application in, or they send it in partially without everything included just to meet a deadline. And what we're trying to do, or what we've tried to do in the past, is to figure out a way to incentivize them to get their application in on time. So that's this item. And last year, it sounds like we approved a $25 per slip per month, per week. And so that maybe just needs to get incorporated into the application, but Mark and Kim will figure that out and then come back if something's necessary. City certification letter, as part of the application for the commercial docks, we had a requirement in there that the applicant provide a letter from the city of White Bear, because it's all White Bear, that said they met a parking regulation, that they had a certain number of spots available per slip, kind of a thing. And we had trouble getting that from one operator in particular, and so that application historically has never been completed because he's never provided the letter, at least for a while now. And so he just goes about his business and, without a permit from us. And the reason that we incorporated it in the first place, my recollection, is to try to help a situation where by having a certain number of slips allowed, that didn't create major parking headaches on the land. If we allowed 1,000 slips and each slip came with 4 cars, that would be chaos or whatever, right? So that was kind of the intent. Is to help that way. But now, we've reached a point where, it's probably not doing any good to have it in our application, and it's keeping our applications from closing in some cases. So maybe we take it out. But that's something that we'll discuss next month, Dave. Anybody want to talk about that at the moment or not? If you do, let me know.
Yeah, just a question. Is this stuff we're talking about, the fines and the requirements, is this encoded in our ordinances? Does it require an ordinance change or simply a motion passed?
I think that removing the requirement that they provide the parking letter, I think that's a motion to adjust that. Oh, and Alan, will you help me say myself here?
My apologies for not being masked. I guess I'm just that kind of guy. Anyway, I didn't get the memo about indoor masking, so anyway. I think that the recommendations are that it just be in the form of a motion, mostly because it's just a policy of the board. I don't think that requirement's cooked into an ordinance that I'm aware of. So if it is not, then it doesn't have to be an ordinance or an amendment. It would just be a motion and adopted as policy by the board.
So are any of these, it doesn't seem that any of these are cooked into the ordinances.
Well, I think the one that probably will be the amendment regarding the lighting for the docks.
Okay.
That would be a performance standard that I think should be ordinanced, so
Okay.
that way it can be enforced as a violation.
So we don't address it right now in our ordinance, so that'd be an addition to the ordinance.
Correct.
Right.
So it'll come forward as such. So it'll be an amendment to Ordinance 5.
Okay.
So, and I think when Mark went through it, it was, I don't remember the statute and verse per se, but we'll put it in there somewhere. It'll be under the commercial bay operators section of the code.
Okay.
And in that case, there's an extra process of a public hearing on the ordinance, and it can't be done like tonight, right?
No, and you would want the language in front of you, and typically cities and other forms of government will have 2 readings, just in case someone wants to tweak something, or if you, most cities will have a public hearing just to let the public come in and comment about a new law that would go into effect. The district's a little different because, well, let's face it, the lake regulations don't affect that many people, so something like this is probably going to affect about, 4 businesses, basically. But if you're going to do it, regular fashion, it'd be 2 readings, and it wouldn't take effect really until after winter anyway. So if we get this done by October, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I see also that the city of Waper Lake is asking us to amend our ordinances. And that's another one. So,
Right. My thinking at the moment is that at our September meeting, we'll have a public hearing and we'll address all these items, and we'll bring the city's request in, because I'd like to give the marina owners a chance to come in and give us input on what we're proposing that will impact them. And I think the public hearing is probably the cleanest way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that way it's on the agenda, and people don't have to get up, I know, like they have, and sort of say their piece at public forum and then have to sit there through everything else. So
Yep.
You might want to segment them out, but we can talk about that as we get a little closer to the meeting.
Right, so we'll address in a public hearing in some form in September as many of these items as we can. Okay, and so maybe instead of continuing through these, does anybody have any questions about any of them? Mike?
The letter, if we kept the letter, maybe the city could state that they don't qualify. This is the problem, they exceed the number of allowable parking spaces, or their zoning permit is, they exceed whatever. Actually stating the problem, giving us a little more say, or a little more punch in if we have to reduce any bolt slips. Saying, well, not just arbitrary. You can't say it's arbitrary anymore.
Okay,
So in other words, we're not looking for a letter that they're okay. We're just looking for a letter stating what's the condition.
you have the status. Okay, well, that's something that the board can consider when we make a decision about this. Any other items in this document that Mark just went through that we would like to discuss at the moment? Meredith?
Yeah, I have a comment about the winter dock marking. Why not make it all bays, not just commercial bay? I've noticed that there's a dock on Park Avenue somewhere that they've been leaving in some winters, and sometimes there's some docking along Highway 96 that is left in during the winter. They all seem to probably pose the same threat. Why not have anyone that leaves a dock in have it lighted?
Okay, that's good. Yep.
Yeah, and I'd like to also say we are looking to the Coast Guard for guidance on illumination and type of light. I think it's a red light. It might have to be a flashing beacon. And so, and then, you always have the choice to pull your dock in if you don't want to put the light out on it.
I have a question regarding, excuse me, the memorial for St. Germain's Bay. It seems premature to have the money make the sign and not make sure we know where it's going.
I think we're pretty positive that we have some people that are willing to give us the easement, and we'd like to show them the sign. But that's just the way we'd kind of like to get it rolling, and hopefully by next month we'll have the sign in. Because I don't want to wait till the ground freezes.
Anybody else have any input on that item? Okay. And Mark, do you think that having, without the sign and just giving them the physical dimensions, that may not be adequate to get their buy-off?
I actually have a question for Scott. About how long is the lead time for, did you go through U of M?
We went through the DOT sign shop. And, well, it's, just a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Now, what we did in our case is we gave them the artwork file in Adobe, Artist or whatever it's called, Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, AI file, so they could print it right off of that. And then we got this last batch of signs done quickly because they were coming up to the end of their fiscal year. They wanted the money.
Okay.
So it would just be a few weeks. So one sign.
Okay. All right, any other, are we taking any, Mike?
Are we talking about the whole thing now, or are we kind of?
We could talk about any other stuff, yep.
Okay. Winter dock marking, I think, light's a good idea. You mentioned a flashing red light. Well, having that in the view of your bedroom window every night, I'm not sure the neighbors would go for that. However, in my defense, Ordinance 5, Part 6, Subdivision 1D. No oscillating, rotating, flashing, or moving sign or light may be used on any dock. That's our ordinance.
Yeah, I did read that. I took that to be more of a summer operation. What we don't want is basically, and there is also an ordinance for winter operations that says you're not allowed to operate a snowmobile within 250 feet of shoreline unless you're accessing or egressing, right? But some of these docks in Commercial Bay, if they leave them out, are 300-plus feet. And if you're coming around at night and you don't see that, I mean, like I said, there was a tragic crash this winter. And at some point, we might become a little bit liable for that.
Yeah, I'm not against lighting them, but a flashing light
That just can't be oscillating.
Okay.
is not something that I think the neighborhood would appreciate looking out at night
Right.
from their living room window or their bedroom window or whenever and see flashing lights.
I would think it wouldn't need to be flashing. I mean, if you're out in a snowmobile and you're going to like, oh, I'm going to run right through that light, you know, and there's a dock under it, well,
Yeah. And you can't see the dock because it's under snow. It's just, you know, it's kind of like a snow heave if you've ever snowmobiled before.
Mr. Chairman, does the Conservation District have anything to say about ice fishing houses that are left on the lake overnight? Do they need lights? I mean, I think the DNR requires certain reflection on them, but do we have a say on locally what needs to be done?
Yeah, I think the DNR has policy on ice fishing houses, and we pretty much just leave it to that. We don't have any ordinances beyond the DNR as far as houses out overnight.
With this,
And Mr. Chair, if I remember the executive committee's discussion, you know, this was really, that's why we're not making any recommendations, because none of us have the expertise to really decide what is appropriate, whether it's a flashing light. And Mike, I'll just trade you houses if it really gets bad. So I do that for you. But absent that, it might come down to just something as simple as reflective tape on the docks. We just don't know yet, but we're trying to make it clear to you guys that we want to address it before this winter. So just something so that we know they're out there, because 325 feet is in the danger zone, as has been proven last year.
Susie?
Brian, would this also include any nets for hockey and that type of thing that are also posted into the ground or into the ice? Would we put some reflective tape, not perhaps lights, but some reflective tape, because they're out of, I mean, last year in Birchwood, there were 3 or 4 of them down the shoreline in different places. I mean, it might be a good idea for reflective tape of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. I think, you know, those would probably all be within 250 feet of the shoreline, I would assume.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah. So I don't know, Susie. I don't know what the best policy is there. Okay, so on that one, we're not doing anything on that at this meeting anyway. That was for discussion, so we'll make a decision at our September meeting, perhaps. Does anybody have any further discussion on any of these items? Mike? Oh, sorry.
You had mentioned $25 a week, but this says $50 a week. Which is it?
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, I sort of spaced out that we made that change last year, but I don't know that we have it in writing anywhere.
It's on the application up at the top, and then it's also on the fee schedule.
Thank you. Then let's just scratch that and go $25 a week for a slip.
Per slip per week, and it gets them when it hits the per week. It can really add up.
Yeah, so no change is required on that item.
So let's scratch that.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, oh, there.
That was just newcomer clarification on that. I guess it's mute now, but the $60 fee was a flat fine?
It was.
Okay. Regarding the city certification letter, is the White Bear City on board with that, or is this something like we're just kind of dropping on them? Do they have concerns?
You know, I don't think that they're aware that we're talking about removing it.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it would affect their operation.
Right.
But it's a good point, and maybe, Kim, you can let them know that we're talking about that in case they want to attend at the next meeting and have some input.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
And then my last comment was on the defiance of permit numbers was, I guess, people on the board believe that's incentive enough to deter action? Or
I think so. It's a lot harder to find because you have to go through a process. But if we can do this and say, for sake of argument, you had 100 boats, and we found out that last year you had 105, and for 2 years we only gave you 95 at $2,000 plus a boat, that we felt that was pretty, it was easier for us to do, and then we don't have to put out fines and try to collect and any of that.
Okay, good.
Is
Yeah,
that good?
I was just curious. It seems like, again, I'm new to this position, but it seems like, you know, they kind of give them an inch, they take a foot.
Yep.
Past few years, so just wanted to make sure that you guys feel it's, you know, incentive enough to deter action.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll move on. Oh, Mike?
Do you want a motion for the sign?
I'd like to motion to, I don't think it's going to cost 600. We just put it in there for safety. We definitely will only take what it costs, but we'd like to get it rolling. So I would move to have, well, how does it work, Diane?
Where do you want to take it out of, do you think? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, can I take it out of my budget?
Sure.
So I'd like to have $600 out of my budget.
Or we could take it out of, well, there's a number of places. You can just do an amount, not to exceed, and then we'll figure out where
Yep.
we'll take it out.
So an amount not to exceed $600 for the St. Germain sign.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes, thank you. Anything else, Mark?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, so we're on to the Lake Education Committee. Scott?
Yeah, let's see. We had a cleanup day last Saturday, and we collected, I think you figured, about 20 pounds of trash.
I think we're probably about 30 pounds.
30 pounds?
Yeah.
So we got, and we got some pictures. I wouldn't say that there was a whole lot of participation, but I think there's enough for our inaugural event.
Yep.
So, and we'll be putting some pictures out on the website and in social media. Other things before I pass it over to Meredith, we have now distributed all of the lake signs to the other marina owners, and the county picked up another one. So I distributed them to all the restaurants last week. And so they're all distributed. We have left one large size sign, which is the size of a speed limit sign, which are 30 by 24 or something. And we have one small sign in reserve.
Good.
So I would say that project is done.
Okay.
And I guess we pass it over to Meredith on the social media.
Thank you. So we're seeing still continued growth on our social media sites. This month I have planned something on the lake level and temperature, boating etiquette, more on invasives, and then something about the boat ramp closure now, and to try to get more volunteers for the Phragmites, and a post on the public hearing if we're going to hold one next month. Any questions for Scott or I?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for organizing the cleanup and getting the signs distributed and all the effort you guys put forth. Okay, we're on to the next item, Treasurer's Report. Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. August 2021 Treasurer's Report. You have a copy. We received the assessment from the city of White Bear Lake this month. And we also paid out for lake treatment for milfoil, and also for swimmer's itch to the township. So those were kind of some unusual payments that we made. So I would like to make a motion to accept checks 4711 through 4718.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the check or accept the checks. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Thank you. The next item is this sheet from the League of Minnesota Cities on our liability coverage. Every year, we're asked to sign whether we waive or not waive. And by the advice of our attorney, I would like to make a motion to be able to sign saying that the member does not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by the Minnesota statute.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to sign this liability coverage form and to check that particular box. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Any questions for Diane? Okay, so we're on to the board council report. Alan?
Good evening, Board. I think we covered most of that stuff that I would be sharing through Mark, so I would stand for questions. Haven't seen anything infraction-wise come through the court system, so knock on wood, we get through a season pretty successfully.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Announcements. Kim?
I don't have any. I haven't received any concerns or complaints or anything. It's been quiet.
Thank you. And we're on to item 10, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all for being here. That's right.
that one situation in Commercial Bay. I mean, we can expand it if we want to.
No, I'm just curious.
You don't do anything about it, you're just going to sit there and
No,
complain.
not in the past. And there was a dock that got left